don't really understand how I ended up here. Dashing around. And losing sight of myself in the process. I think that's been the story of my whole life.
Elizabeth's movements as Diane are spot on, absolutely spot on. And congratulations on that. And I want to just talk about her habit of lowering her eyes and looking up. I mean, to me, that seems as though it was an affectation. If that's true, what do you think it signified?
So we all move in relation, like we do things because of what we've seen, what we see in other people, what we see as successful, what we see as a way to get what you want, a way of communicating with people without words. Diana has a lot of physical things that could be seen as psychological, and she has a lot of things that could be seen as purely physical. So, for example, Elizabeth and I use the idea of her having a quite heavy fringe. So the idea that she's playing having a really heavy fringe, because Diana did have a heavy fringe. She also had a cropped hairstyle. So if you've got short hair and you're wearing a collar on your shirt, your hair can flick up. So you could think that she moves her head forward because she's preventing her hair from flicking up in a superficial way. But you also can look at images of Diana from when she's younger, and she does a lot of lowering her head and putting her eyes up because she's trying to be seen by her family, who didn't really engage with her. So it can be learned behavior because of the experience that she had growing up, which was always needing something. So if you always need something, you're turning yourself towards people rather than allowing people to come to you. And that's what makes Diana different from the Queen. It's witchcraft. Yeah, it's witchcraft. But we all do things based on what your experience as a child has been. So it's physical psychology, really, her eyes looking up. And it's something that she plays into the more that she gets seen. So if you have a point of concentration of, I don't know who's looking at me when I'm a child, isn't it interesting that she becomes the most seen person in the world? And so you give that to an actor in the same way you're reacting now. You give that to an actor who hasn't had that thought process before, and it changes their relationship with space and people that they're working with. And so it means that a lot of the work gets done without having to act it.
Just briefly about the Queen, she doesn't have any excess movements. It's learned, I guess, and since childhood, she's wound up. She's tightly wound. That's how she seems. She's controlled. Was that easy to do?
Well, that's great. I mean, that's great. So you're thinking physically about how the Queen moves. That's amazing that it is a learnt behavior, because if the Queen, what would it be like if the Queen was going, hiya, oh, hi, everyone. Hey, oh, thanks for coming. Come on in. Royal family's great. If she was like that, it would be a completely different relationship she had with the subjects, right? So she has to hold everything in because she has to be seen to be in control of the country. So if she was going higher, we wouldn't trust her. But we trust the idea of control, physical control. So in the same way that as the royal family became more photographed because of technology and because of the media, you see them all doing less and less and less in public. And it's really difficult to do. Like, I find it, obviously I'm wibbling around, but I find it really hard to keep my energy in because I'm expressive, but I'm allowed to be expressive. If the Queen or Princess Diana or Prince Charles was caught going like that on camera, we wouldn't trust them and all hell would break loose. Yeah, so of course, meeting an actor like Imelda on this series or on the last series, we just had one one session where I was encouraging her not to be as generous as Imelda is, because she talks out, she goes over the top. She goes over her top when she speaks because she wants you to feel included. Whereas the Queen invites people to her. Simply placing her feet in the floor and her big toes in the floor meant that she owns the space that she's in. So people have to come and then she decides when to leave. It's less winding up and it's more secluding.
I'm afraid, Your Majesty, interest in the princess's private life is unlikely to die down anytime soon.
The press are on our tails constantly.
All one wants is for that girl to find peace.
Mummy, you okay?
I'm okay. It's just... it has all been a bit mad recently.
Diana sent messages through her outfits many times. And I'm just wondering, are you young enough to remember, old enough to remember her, the sensation that created in the news when she wore these message outfits?
I remember talking about that once, and me and Amy and I spoke about that with Elizabeth a lot, because Elizabeth is 32 and I'm 35. And so I was like,
Oh, you were
8. And actually, I think where that stood me in good favor is that Amy often talks about, she'll often say, close your eyes. What do you remember of that person? And that's the essence. And that's what we're trying to do, is an essence, because it also ultimately has to be our creations as well. And so that's exactly how I feel about Diana, is I have a kind of understanding and a sense and a silhouette and a palette, but I don't, and what that prevents me from having is all the inhibitions that I think somebody might have if they knew her really well, or because otherwise I think that would paralyze me. And I've spoken to Elizabeth about that as well. So in a way, we're in a really good position. We knew her enough, but not enough to feel paralyzed.
But not, yes.
You asked whether but in fact Sid talked to Elizabeth about that. That was quite an interesting question. Did you and Elizabeth had I think Sid and Elizabeth Debicki had a very special working relationship. I think sometimes that can happen. Just got each other, which is helpful.
Oh, good.
Did you?
We talked a lot about decisions, about there was a trust by this point with me and Elizabeth and Amy as well, because she was involved, and about what we were putting her in, what we were designing. But I think what me and Elizabeth would often talk about is, where do we put that? Because that's really important as well. You have a look that you've designed, but it's, where do I put that now? And I think what was interesting about Elizabeth, we actually started to build up a wardrobe for her. So where with somebody like the Queen and Margaret, you make every single thing. So you don't build that up in the same way, and they wear something different every single time. So you don't have this kind of wardrobe that you can go to in the morning and pick. Whereas I think with Elizabeth, because a lot of it was bought as well, we had a wardrobe. So every morning we'd kind of go to the wardrobe and go, what's the scene? What's she doing? Why would she wear it?
Yes.
So I think they were mapped out very painstakingly and on purpose, like, as you say, how Diana did. So you have, when she arrives in that red dress, that was on purpose as well, because she's arriving on holiday and she's arriving with her kids. And there's, as we said, there's like Brit abroad, what you'd wear, shift dress when you'd go. It needs to be suitable for leaving London, but arriving in the south of France.
You finally succeeded in turning this house upside down. It's nothing less than revolution.
That's never my intention.
Set against a background of raw emotion, the royal family remained silent.
What do people want from me?
For you to be mother to the nation.
You've seen the images on the television. Diana gave people what they needed.
All over the world, in their thousands.
And they adored her for it. This is going to be the biggest thing that any of us has ever seen.
The sets are incredibly elaborate and luxurious, all the old silks and fringes and carved wood and whatnot. To me, it looks like a major dust trap. But I'm wondering what your sources were. Have you ever been inside, for instance, or what did you go to?
For fabrics and things, we had, well, there's a British company called Marvick who pretty much haven't changed their designs since 1989. So they were great because in some ways they have a kind of classic English look. So they sort of were quite good for us. We had some things woven in Italy, which were the more elaborate damasks. And then some were designed by the graphics department and then printed. So we had lots of carpets. There were quite modern techniques of printing onto carpet now. So you can create any design you like and print it. So it's a mix of what you can find and trying to create that world, because the fabrics of the 80s and 90s are really quite hard to, they're not very fashionable. Well, they're getting better, but at the time, hard to sort of find. So we made quite a lot.
Wow, that's amazing. The hair and makeup, Diana personified the glamour area. And I'm wondering, do you think she represented the last gasp of like highly styled glamour?
We're talking sort of 20 years ago, and I can only tell you from my own memory really about that era, because obviously I haven't recently researched the period after Diana died, you know, apart from the latter half of season 6. But I think she definitely had a kind of put togetherness, which obviously as time has gone on, it became, there was a kind of a badge of honor, wasn't it, to do a kind of no makeup and the kind of the healthy no makeup and relaxed, and this didn't take any effort at all kind of a vibe. Whereas Diana was definitely a kind of manufactured, a real bombshell look.
And it worked. I mean, she was considered the most beautiful woman in the world, the most photographed for sure. I'm so sad that this show's coming to an end, because we've all been drinking it in for so long. What are your feelings on this?
Bittersweet. I mean, sad, because it's been such an amazing project to be part of. I feel very, very lucky and privileged to have happened to be in the right place at the right time, to happen to get in and have such a great sort of creative process. So, but at the same time, it's always nice to finish on a high, you know, and then move on to other nice, exciting projects. So I'm hoping that this is, as a body of work, can be a sort of proud standalone.
It's been really transformative for me, for my life. It's definitely really like changed my life, and I have absolutely loved being Cate Makeup from The Crown, and now I'm a bit like I'm Cate from Berkhamsted. I'm just like, who am I? So it really has sort of, you know, it's felt very definitive for a long time, and I'm excited because it has given me a toolkit of skills which I definitely just wouldn't have had without the opportunity to learn over so many seasons. Yes. So I'm just excited to kind of, I guess, put that toolkit into action somewhere else, maybe with a slightly different theme style, you know, explore some other looks. But
yes. Yeah, well, thank you so much, ladies. I look forward to the movie.
Thank you so much.